LGBTQ plus hate, promoting, quote, false narratives, escalating harassment of LGBTQ plus individuals. This alleged hate includes, quote, the vilification of drag shows and, quote, baseless claims of child by LGBTQ plus people.
Yeah, that's you. Yeah, no, that checks out. That's like, if you were to describe it, like, that's basically his like tagline or log line. That would be like, yeah, sell Matt Walsh to me. Well, what is Matt Walsh all about? What are we doing here?
Dozens of state-run, quote-unquote, fusion centers popped up all over the country. Now there are roughly 79 of them in operation, and they exist in virtually every state. The point
Interesting start.
of these centers is supposedly to facilitate cooperation between the federal government and the states in order to gather intelligence and prevent terrorist attacks and other serious threats to the homeland. But here's the strange thing. They don't appear to be doing that. A couple of years ago, investigative reporters at The Nation found that the Fusion Center in Central Florida was investigating, quote, criminal and violent extremist use of emojis. The Fort Worth Fusion Center, meanwhile, was preoccupied with a plot to break the Netflix star Joe Exotic out of prison, while the Capital Region Fusion Center was busy looking into...
I gotta say, in terms of like the start of the video and where it's going from here, this is a lot better bait than I think I've seen Matt Walsh pull off before. I think his writers deserve some credit today, where they're like, all right, let's really ramp up the Peterson of it all. You know, the grandiosity of this. We could start with 9/11 and kind of work into multiple different things, conspiracies.
Viral TikTok challenges. The Washington
it's probably going to turn out to be a nothing burger. It's going to be a massive nothing burger.
State Fusion Center, for its part, opened an investigation into a report, quote, concerning a homeowner working on cars in his driveway and letting oil run down the street.
You should fill the beardless pic of him. I don't have that on my computer. Beardless Matt Walsh. It sucks because there's a really good Matt Walsh, and they always get like, here it is. Well, that was easy. All right, well, never mind. This is on me, all right? This is a fair call out, and I deserve to be called out on that. All right, so we got this. Put it there. Oh, hold on. I gotta hit play.
Into Mission Creek and Olympia. Now, in any other context, this would be considered fraud. These state governments are taking money to fight terrorism, but they're not remotely attempting to do that. In fact, they don't appear to be doing anything of consequence whatsoever, which in this context is especially strange. I mean, normally when federal and state governments give themselves vast powers of surveillance and lofty new mandates, they don't waste their time chasing down homeowners who are being a little sloppy while they work on their cars. They usually start using their expanded powers as quickly and as widely as possible.
Okay, you're doing this for a minute straight.
But the journalists weren't able to provide much more clarity on that, probably because the government redacted information on their investigations in this area. So we learned all about the TikTok investigations and the emoji investigations at these fusion centers, but not so much about their crackdown on the First Amendment. And that's where things have stood for the past several years. But yesterday, thanks to a report from Mary Margaret Olahan at the Daily Signal, we have indication of the actual mission of these fusion centers and what First Amendment protected events they might be interested in. The Daily Signal obtained an email sent in February.
The Daily Signal is the conservative American political media news site that is published by the Heritage Foundation. All right, good to know.
February of 2023 by the Anti-Defamation League, or the ADL, to the Washington State Fusion Center. And that's the same fusion center that was looking into that homeowner who was working on his car in a sloppy way. Here's the subject line. White supremacist fight clubs, anti-LGBTQ plus hate. Now, in the body of the email, the ADL warns about, quote, online amplifiers of LGBTQ plus hate promoting, quote, false narratives, escalating harassment of LGBTQ plus individuals. This alleged hate includes, quote, the vilification of drag shows and, quote, baseless claims of child grooming by LGBTQ plus people.
Yeah, that's you. Yeah, no, that checks out. That's like, if you were to describe it, like, that's basically his like tagline or log line. That would be like, yeah, sell Matt Walsh to me. Well, what is Matt Walsh all about? What are we doing here?
According to the ADL's email to this Washington State Counterterrorism Center, this vilification, quote, further endangered and isolated an already at-risk community. According to the Daily Signal, the email then appears to link to an ADL blog post which identifies who the purveyors of this supposedly dangerous hate are. And those people are Libs of TikTok, the account Gays Against Groomers, Blaze Media, Christopher
Everything checks out so far.
Rufo, and of course, that international infamous terrorist who goes by the name Matt Walsh. Now, the Post states that, quote, the ADL is advocating for
He's still like 3 minutes and 47 seconds into this entire, like, whoa, there's a lot of build, you know? He's greasing you up.
government partners to strengthen laws against perpetrators of online hate, as well as consulting with law enforcement partners to act on online hate speech that incites violence and or credible threats. The ADL says that it teamed up with GLAAD as well, and they're apparently all working with law enforcement. In other words, the ADL, just to get you up to speed here, the ADL told a counterterrorism agency to investigate journalists and political commentators because we are saying things they don't like. They are trying explicitly to use the arm of the law to silence us at gunpoint.
Where did we get to that leap?
Now, they don't even claim that we violated any law, right? They're not claiming that because we haven't. Instead, they're saying that because we oppose the chemical and
Just so we're clear, like Matt Walsh has a long history of this. If we look at, this is from 2022. What is a woman star Matt Walsh lashes out at critics, threatening to have me arrested and even killed. So this was him saying the same thing. And this is a video he released now saying they are setting up to arrest me. The Daily Wire's Matt Walsh lashed out at critics celebrating Marsha Blackburn demanding an investigation into puberty blockers. Walsh learned that plenty of backlash this year after releasing his film, What is a Woman? The left is wailing and screaming and threatened to have me arrested and even killed, but they are powerless to stop us. Their threats mean nothing to me, and their insults and accusations mean even less. We're going to see this through, no matter what, he tweeted this week. Right. So he's kind of, you know, got a whole, the boy who cried wolf thing here.
Physical castration of children.
The boy who
and because
cried
we believe
Walsh.
in biology and because we don't think that men should be cross-dressing in front of children, therefore, we are inciting violence. So they call on law enforcement to act. The Daily Signal reached out to the Washington State Patrol about this, and they're one of the state agencies that participate in this fusion center. They indicated that they take emails from the ADL and various other interest groups under advisement, but they denied opening any investigation on the basis of the ADL's email. So, according to them, as far as we know, there is not a current criminal investigation against, say, me.
What did I tell you? It was going to be a nothing burger. Took 5 minutes to get there. 5 fucking minutes. A lot of grandiosity, though. Peterson would be very proud. Oh, Bucko, bloody hell, you did a great job. Yeah, you made the woke moralists really scared. Made them feel like it's all about free speech.
For tweeting things
Bloody
that they don't
hell.
like. Now, obviously, we have no idea whether that's true or not. We also have no reason to believe that it's true. You know, it'd certainly be strange for the ADL to send an email like this to a counterterrorism center. Right? The fact that they're sending it would seem to indicate that there's some kind of relationship here, that there's some sort of precedent. Using the internet without ExpressVPN, it's like
So is there anything left? Was it just...
is now a de facto intelligence agency for federal and state law enforcement. This is the organization that's now advising the Washington Fusion Center to investigate me.
Like, you understand, though, like, this is me, basically, if I had come out because there's articles in right-wing publications that obviously criticize me or my takes or what I've done, and then suddenly saying, well, based on that and the fact that it seems like they're colluding with a right-wing think tank here that is being funded by the Heritage Foundation in order to publish stories on the Daily Signal, and that, there's been a number of YouTube videos made by, right-wing pundits that happen to be, definitely favorable to the Daily Signal. They've had positive articles published in there as well, and because of that, some of these other organizations and think tanks have criticized, these takes as being communist or far Marxist or radicalist in their nature. That this could mean that they are coming to eventually firebomb my entire house and family. Yeah. Now, that hasn't happened yet, obviously, and thank God for that, but we have to remain diligent as we find out what exactly their aims and goals and what they're trying to achieve are, because that should be a very important aspect of this entire process. And I'm going to make a couple videos on it. Obviously, I'd, really ask if you could help support and join the Patreon, subscribe, give subs, all that kind of stuff, because it is a crucial time right now as this is taking place.
And several other commentators for having offensive opinions. Now, if you know anything about the history of the ADL, this actually probably wouldn't surprise you. The ADL has a long and well-documented history of working with law enforcement, even going so far as to actively participate in law enforcement investigations. One of the more famous cases took place in the 1960s when an ADL director raised money for the FBI to pay some Klansmen $36,000 in an effort to set up other Klansmen. Now, that incident led to a shootout and the death of one Klan member. Whatever you make of that operation, journalists noted at the time that it was obviously a little strange for a private tax-exempt organization to be involved in this. The ACLU at the time called for an investigation. But in the end, no one seemed to mind. The ADL adopted a pseudo-law enforcement assistant role, which they've retained ever since. Now, I focused on the ADL so far, mainly because they're the group that are trying to have me specifically investigated, but there are many other organizations like the ADL doing the same thing. Maybe the most notable is the Southern Poverty Law Center, or SPLC. You might remember that the FBI cited the SPLC in its infamous memo claiming that, quote, radical traditionalist Catholic ideology is a significant terrorist threat in America. The FBI
Why are you doing this? It would actually be incredible if someone wanted to start doing an investigation into how much violence and terrorism, bomb threats, death threats and stuff can be directly attributed to people who were inspired by the works of Matt Walsh. If there was something that can conclusively state that, hey, here is a correlation, as they've done with, say, Libs of TikTok, and there's been news articles on this. Here's a correlation between Matt Walsh. Here's him giving the addresses of doctors and nurses and other people, and here's him now, stating that these individuals are mutilating children, which they're not doing, and then these people are now getting death threats, these people are now getting bomb threats, these people are now getting terrorism enacted upon them. That's really fucked up. This is actually directly because of his latest broadcast. Like, that would be useful, for example. But simply saying, and obviously he and a lot of right-wingers hate the ADL as one of their aspects for, leading this charge, and also saying, like, now this information was also provided to FBI at one point or another. I'm sure you remember the FBI has actually cited the Southern Poverty Law Center before. So because they've cited them, that also proves conclusively that they could be intentionally about to arrest me. Like you said, they're setting up to arrest me. And again, there's absolutely zero evidence to support that.
I tried to hide that memo, but a whistleblower came forward and released it. The SPLC is a completely discredited group. They've even had to pay out defamation settlements for some of their more egregious hack jobs. And the Bureau knows that, according to the whistleblower, but the FBI tried to cite them anyway in order to justify the targeted surveillance of Catholics on the basis of their religious beliefs. We've seen many examples of similar misconduct in recent years in which the government partners with some supposedly independent private entity in order to lend some legitimacy to its obviously illegitimate investigations. During the Trump...
Oh, nice. Smegley's finally unbanned. Okay, that's good. That worked out. And it's not showing up on viewer activity. FG, were you the one who just subbed? Well, either way, big thank you to the person who just subbed on the Serf Times. Appreciate
campaign. That. The FBI effectively teamed up with the Washington Post in order to obtain secret surveillance warrants against the Trump team. The FBI even copy-pasted from a debunked Washington Post editorial in its FISA warrant application against Carter Page. And more recently, the DOJ has been investigating Dr. Ethan Haim because he blew the whistle on Texas Children's Hospital, which claimed that it had stopped butchering children, but kept on doing it anyway in secret. And that got the attention of trans activists and their various advocacy groups, which in turn led...
So he's equally mad about the FBI infiltrating mosques after 9/11. No, that was government doing good, exceptions to the rule. The Patriot Act, if it's detaining people without due process, simply under suspicion of terrorism because of the color of their skin, that's them making sure that those terrorists are put in their place. And that's important.
To the DOJ knocking on Haim's door. Now, they know they don't have a legal case against him. They know it's not a violation of patient privacy to disclose the existence of unlawful and unethical procedures without disclosing patient identities. But they're harassing him anyway. They want to send him to prison, take away his medical license. Now, it's not hard to see where all of this leads. As I told the Daily Signal when they called me about this story to get my comment on it before they published it, I have no doubt that if Biden wins another term, we will actually see prominent conservative commentators arrested on hate crime and terrorism charges.
That was a lot of the same cries that were made right before Biden won. And like Tim Pool was saying them not just about content creators, but about everybody, remember?
And you keep saying, but my kids need food. And now inflation is here, and there's food shortages, and your kids aren't eating, and the schools are indoctrinating your kids.
That is going to happen. This is not hyperbole or being dramatic conspiracy theories. This is what they want to do, and they're laying the groundwork for it right now. First, they open investigations, then they start surveillance, and then once that's normalized, they escalate things. We talked about slippery slopes yesterday on the show in relation to...
They're a logical fallacy. And now it's very relatable. I feel like I'm on a slope sometimes and a little bit of butter's down there and it gets slippery.
Trans ideology. This is yet another slippery slope that we are on.
So
the ADL,
they're not real, and it's just not really based in reality, right? The slippery slope of trans ideology. Yes. I think Michael Knowles has kind of charted that one out, right? He's like, well, it starts with, of course, some curiosity, if you will. Maybe you're just lonely. You're enjoying a good glass of Chardonnay, and then you're alone. Your wife's out of town, and you want to go on the internet. And then while you're on Pornhub, you might just be looking up some of the most regular, things that you used to enjoy. But then their algorithms start to suggest stuff for you. And suddenly, before you know it, you're watching sissy hypnotic porn, and it's trying to suggest things to you. Perhaps you would enjoy other tastes, a variety, la joie de vivre. Maybe you could enjoy some of the more appetizing culinary delights before you. And then all of a sudden you're watching bisexual porn. And then after that bisexual porn, you start to realize that maybe there's more things that you might be interested in. And the AI keeps feeding this to you because, of course, they're working in conjunction with the elites and the globalists. And then before you know it, this is how LGBTQ plus numbers are going up. And this is how LGBTQ plus people are actually created. This is the ground zero for the entire queer movement and community. It's all created through this woke mind virus coming all the way on high from Disney. No one can escape from it. And now
is telling
it's all true.
Counterterrorism centers to suppress political dissent. And the fact is that unless they pay a price for this, unless there is enormous backlash, and unless law enforcement agencies stop taking marching orders from these compromised far left-wing activist groups, then they'll continue to make these demands. And eventually they'll get what they want. And at that point, if it gets that far, the only real question will be, which of us do they hit first and try to make an example out of?
I mean, there's been pretty well documented, and again, you can look at that article in USA Today, correlations between, say, Libs of TikTok, Higher Right Check, her making posts, and then those posts resulting in real-world violence or real-world terrorism or real-world bomb threats, death threats, that kind of stuff. And that has not resulted in, so far as I've seen, any significant crackdown or investigation into Higher Right Check or her empire of bigotry, her empire of hate. I don't think there's going to be one because, again, this is something they all have plausible deniability about. If you are Matt Walsh, you can simply say, well, hey, by the way, that person who just called the bomb threat into the children's hospital that got, the children's hospital shut down for a little while as children needed crucial care, that wasn't from me. They were a fan of lots of people, because most people aren't just a fan of exclusively one person and one person alone. So you can just point towards, yes, I am only a fan of Tim Pool. I am only a fan of Steven Crowder. I am only a fan of Alex Jones, right? It's like, well, no, a lot of people watch a lot of content. So yeah, maybe it was me. Maybe it was Andy No. Maybe it was Christopher Rufo. Who knows? I mean, they could have been fans of any one of us. They could have been watching all of our content, and, freedom of speech. We've said that this is our opinion, that we feel like this is child genital mutilation and this is the endangerment and pedophilic act upon children. And so when we say that and people go and do things, it could be any one of us. It doesn't know. You'll never truly know who was responsible for this vile act, which, again, I think a lot of then the responsibility here would come on these platforms because, yeah, I've said this before, you can't suddenly become gay for a month during Pride, put a whole bunch of nice banners and beautiful rainbows all over the place, gorgeous trans flags just draped all over YouTube and stuff like that, and highlight super famous creators and who are members of the queer community. You can't just do that, but then the rest of the year allow people to stoke the fear and fan the flames of stochastic terrorists with their shows where they're regularly lying, like demonstratively lying, being like, this doctor is mutilating children. No, this doctor is not. And if you're like, this doctor is mutilating children, here's the address of the hospital, here's the phone number of the hospital, here's the email the hospital, we're taking action. And then people start threatening that doctor, saying, hey, you're trying to like murder and mutilate children. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like this is, again, it's a real world consequence happening because these are extremists, bigots. Like these are extremists, you know. I'm not saying someone who simply has a show where they're like, I don't like trans people, suddenly should be just like removed from your platform. There's a huge difference between that and then someone who's also trying to incite violence on a regular basis. Like that is what they are using the platform for, to directly dehumanize trans people, to target trans people, to target trans kids, to target doctors, teachers, nurses, you know, principals, hospitals. That's a very different thing. And it's clearly demonstrated in what Matt Walsh has done his entire career since he became famous, that he does that on a regular basis. So there is no, and like, you know, the way Matt Walsh is trying to put this, there is no like conspiracy to get him arrested. And it's, you know, in conjunction with a post 9/11, you know, intelligence agencies that are gathering information on hatred that have, you know, targeted him specifically in conjunction with the ADL, in conjunction with the Southern Poverty Law Center to try and destroy him the way he's making it out to be. The reality is he's just profiting, and very, very handsomely, off his empire bigotry on a regular basis. Like fucking $100,000 a month, he said he was pulling in ad revenue from making these kind of videos.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Can you please hit the like and subscribe button and maybe leave a comment? It really does help the videos out. But first, the people who produce everything you see before you and make this entire channel possible: Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Puppy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian DeMel, Trevbot.exe, Words Greenwood, and Travis McClinton. And also, thank you to every other person who helps fund this show. Their names are on the screen right now. It would not be possible without every single one of them. We cannot thank you enough. And if you want to join the Patreon, please come to patreon.com/theserfs and help us exist.